Well, good evening, folks. Welcome. I'm thrilled to be back after 15 days, and I'm also thrilled to have Sharda Subramanya with me, my dear friend. And today we are going to talk about spirituality and high impact leadership. Surprised? You must be wondering what has spirituality got to do with business, with leadership? Spirituality belongs to the subjective domain, the inner domain of man, and business is all about action, right? It belongs to the physical domain of man. Come on, guys, these things don't go together. Well, this is the traditional popular belief of the 20th century. The fact is, they go together, they work together. There are two ways to look at anything. One is the philosophical approach. In the philosophical approach, you are diagnosing, you are dissecting, you're rationalizing, you're giving your opinions, forming opinions. And when this thing happens in a subjective area like spirituality, you have n number of definitions, n number of opinions, and no one seems, and there seems to be no overlap. As simple as that. And the second method is practicality or the practical method, the usage method. So we are going to talk of spirituality in terms of the usage method. First, we'll be defining what spirituality means to us, followed by how does spirituality help us, helps the business, and helps leadership. Well, now I pass on the mic to Sharda with a request. Sharda, why don't you set the ball rolling by defining what spirituality means to you?
Thank you, Sandeep, and let a big, very good evening to all listeners, viewers. Thank you so much for having me on this platform again. Today's topic is something very close to my heart, and as you asked, spirituality has n number of definitions. I think this is probably a term that has been understood and misunderstood by several people. But if you want to just talk about what the essence of spirituality is, I think it is a basically a human experience. It is something where which is bigger than ourselves. It is something where we go beyond just this physical body. We align ourselves with the environment, with our surroundings, and with the uh, entire universe, in a sense, the entire cosmos. So it's a question of our connection with our uh, larger home. This body being our smallest home, but basically we are all living beings in a much much larger home, and that larger home covers everything from the universe to all our planetary systems, to every living being on earth, to all living things, not just human beings. So unless and until that connection is established, uh, it is you are virtually confined and living a kind of a prisoner's life within your own body, a prey to your own senses, reacting to your own emotions, and not really in coordination or symphony with the rest of the world. And that, I think, is for me the essence of spirituality.
Well, beautifully said, Sharda. And while you were talking, I was reminded of the human anatomy. I was reminded of the human ecosystem. You see, you'll agree that
Yes.
all human beings have got three prime energies: the spirit energy, which gives life, the mental energy, which makes us think, rationalize, and the physical energy, which makes us move. Now, if, from this ecosystem, if we remove the spirit, what happens? We die.
Absolutely.
Why? Because the spirit energy, gives life to the mind and gives life to the body.
True.
And mind in turn helps the body to move. Now, since this spirit energy is wrapped by the mind energy and the mind energy is wrapped by the body energy, the innate qualities of the spirit energy, they are subdued. They cannot manifest the way they can. And the qualities of the body energy or the physical energy or the matter energy and the mind energy tends to overtake. Now, what is the quality of the spirit energy? In simple terms, it's love.
Yes.
In simple terms, it's love. And whatever we talk about the human growth is the manifestation of the byproducts from love. So, what I would say that for me, spirituality is living by the norms of the spirit, discovering love, moving love from selfishness to selflessness. Be a criminal, be a atheist, be it anyone. Love is one thing which, right from the time you are born till the time you are dead, you require and you cannot survive by love. And as you progress on this path of spirituality, which means you keep on unfolding new layers of love, you keep on expanding your dimension of love, slowly and gradually, you start becoming inclusive. From I to the family, from the family to the extended family, from the extended family to friends, to neighbors, to cities, to the country, and that just keeps on expanding. So, for me, in simple terms, spirituality means a journey from the lowest end of love to the highest end of love.
Yes, I think that's very beautifully put, Sandeep. Uh, and I kind of I resonate completely with that, because I think love is perhaps the greatest manifestation of a spiritual being. And like we speak in Vedanta or in many other spirituality, a spiritual soul has to be happy, has to be blissful, has to be peaceful, has to be full of love, and has to be full of empathy. So when we use a word like Satchidanand, which is basically your eternal consciousness, which is the thing that is with you from the moment you are born and beyond. So that consciousness is what is spiritual. And that consciousness, I think one can recognize in every person, in every being, in even in the trees, even in nature. So once you recognize that consciousness and you realize that we are all basically one and the same, and each of us has been given a particular role, as they say, "एक दायरा दिया हुआ है" in Hindi. We perform within that role or that boundary, but we cannot isolate ourselves from the others. There has to be a mutual give and take, and a mutual support that we give each other. We sustain each other. And unless we recognize that through our spiritual awakening, it is extremely difficult, be it whatever you want to be. I mean, whether it's if you're just a simple student, a child, or you're a mother, or you're a father, or you go on to become a leader, whichever role you manifest yourself, you find yourself in, your spirituality has to be manifested in that role. And that is what we have to talk about today, I think.
Brilliant, excuse me, brilliant, Sharda, because love is not an action the way we see love. Love is a state of being, and that's exactly what you have said. And in love, there are four fundamentals. One is acceptance, accepting the other person as he or she is. The second is respect. You respect the person, acknowledge the person. Third is communication, because relationship is highly critical. And what is relationship? Exchange of information and energy.
Right.
So that's communication. And that is something, which binds all of us underneath, to which you were referring to. And the last is compassion. So when these four elements come into your life, you tend to go towards love, you tend to become more inclusive. Why? Because they give rise to bonding and mutuality. They give rise to caring and sharing.
Absolutely, Sandeep. I think you're bang on there. I completely agree. Uh, when the other thing, of course, is also that spirituality is in many ways, it's a very individual experience. I cannot tell you to be spiritual. You cannot tell me. It is an understanding and a recognition that comes from within. As we grow, or as we read, or as we experience life, we understand our connect with the surroundings. And I think that for some people it happens early, for some people later. But there is no way that you can grow as a human being. And when I say human being, I include all humans, whatever be their role. You cannot grow in whichever role you are in unless you are able to establish that connect. But how you are going to do it, through which route you're going to do it, is a very different it's different for each individual. The other thing, of course, is let us never ever confuse spirituality with religion, because religion is a far more specified, I don't want to use the word dogmatic, but there is a certain specified set of do's and don'ts. There is a division between people the minute you speak of a religion. So religion and spirituality should be kept separate. Spiritual is where all religions converge. And like we had a talk earlier on this, that every religion, basically the essence of every religion is to understand your spiritual maker or spiritual cosmos, and to find a way to finally merge with it, or live beyond this short life that you have on this planet, to go beyond that with this cosmos around you and this whole surroundings in a as blissful, peaceful, loving, affectionate, caring, and impactful manner. So I think that is my take on
You know,
spirituality. Mhm.
excuse me. That's totally brilliant, Sharda. And again, the way we have defined spirituality, or what spirituality means to you and to me, is virtually the same. Probably we are just using different expressions, right?
Yes.
Uh, I was just thinking, how does it impact businesses and leadership? First of all, the leadership, a good quality, high impact leadership, is the soul and heart of any business. Without leadership, the business is dead. So, leadership is an integral part and to a certain extent synonym with business for the purpose of today's discussion. Now, uh, in today's VUCA environment, we got to recognize one thing, that the 20th century materialistic outlook, the 20th century driving force of machinery, where people were just supposed to stand or sit near machines and keep doing a particular job repeatedly. And there were SOPs on a piece of paper, so they were primarily ticking or checking the boxes. Today, we are in a different environment. Today, it's all knowledge economy, it's all people economy, right? And
Yes.
the knowledge is over here in the head. It's up to that person how much he or she transfers on a piece of paper. The dynamics are very different. So, what is expected out of the leaders is number one, to keep the flock together. Because without people, businesses cannot run, right? And how do you keep the flock together? By having values and ethics to which everyone resonates with. And when people come in, the second is the culture. And the third element is performance and results. Because at the end of the day, you cannot divorce performance and results from business. So, the way I look at it, to be able to keep the flock together, to be able to handle them properly, deep self awareness is required. Because unless you are aware, why are you thinking and behaving the way you are behaving and thinking, you really cannot manage other people. Number two, You need a matured, emotional, intelligent quotient. And number three, you need to be skilled in everything you do. Now, when I say skilled, I mean in the corporate hierarchy, the more you go up, it becomes more and more of a people management thing or the situation management thing, right? So you need to be skilled. When I sum it up together, it is you need to be influential and inspiring.
Correct. I think you have a point there, Sandeep. When we talk of leadership, we're basically talking of, when what are the qualities of a good leader? First and the most important is that the leader shows direction, gives, inspires, and also leads by personal example. Keeping the flock together, definitely. Human resources now, or human capital, is probably the most valuable asset that any business or corporate has. And so, how do you treat that asset well to ensure that you can maximize your returns from it? Because basically, leadership is all about maximizing your returns. And it could be returns for the company, it would also be returns for society. So in both ways, it is the leaders. It's a good fortune to have a good leader. And it's also good fortune for the leader to recognize the value of his human capital, his or her. I don't want to be. I have to ensure that I use her more often because I I do want to see more and more women leaders. And I do realize that spiritually, if you are uh, evolved. I'm using that word more to kind of express the fact that you've got to have an understanding or a what do I say, an acknowledgement of the fact that you are but a speck in this in the entire cosmos or the cosmic reality that we all live in. And once you have that understanding, uh, a lot of good qualities develop. I think you can be inspiring, number one. You can be empathetic. You can also be humble enough to be able to understand, grant, because leaders, very often leaders find it difficult to share credit, whereas they find it very easy to put blame on on their subordinates or punish them in some way or the other. So it's much more important for a leader to be generous, large hearted, empathetic, to understand if a particular person in a particular point is not delivering at his best, then it's your job as a leader to ensure that you understand what is it that is not getting out the best out of him. So you've got to understand, have you put him in the right place? Is he suited for that role? Is he happy there, or is it something else that's bothering him? But to understand and to arrive at that kind of an empathetic nature, you have to have a spiritual bent of mind. And I'm not trying to be preachy here or say that you've got to worship God every morning and go to the temple every day. No, that is not the spirituality we are talking about. The spirituality is the core of the word is the spirit. So once you understand that the very spirit that is within you is the spirit that is within everyone else, and you have by good fortune and by several, or maybe your own hard work, your own circumstances, you have been put in a position of leadership over the others. But that does not in any way make you superior. And unless and until you are able to understand that truly, not just as a book, but because you have evolved spiritually, then you will realize that carrying the team with you, giving the right kind of credit to the right people at the right time, and also even reprimand in the right way with a certain amount of finesse and dignity, that is also essential. Because there is nothing comes from humiliating or bullying your subordinates. A lot of leaders do not appreciate that. And I think in India in particular, because of our feudal culture, we have become very it's commonplace to assume that somebody who is in an authority or a position of authority is naturally superior to you in every way, as a human being, as a financial expert, as a mathematician. So it becomes very easy to, so that is also a danger that leaders have, because your team tends to just blindly agree with you, and very few of them have the courage to stand up and say, no sir, or no ma'am, this is not it, we should try this, or this is an alternative. So unless you encourage your team to think creatively, to have the courage to speak out at the right time, to maybe even make mid-course corrections in your plans or your grandiose plans, which you may take a lot of pride in. If you don't have that largeness of heart, it is going to damage not anybody else but your own credibility as a leader, your ability to lead in the future, and definitely it's going to impact your organization. So I think there we have to understand how spirituality uh, kind of permeates into every aspect of life.
Well, beautifully put, Sharda. And you have got the ancient wisdom with modern day flavor, right, into the picture. Fantastic. I was reminded of General Powell's quote on leadership. He says, leadership is all about people. It's not about planning or strategies.
Right.
It is about making people do things which they believed that they cannot do,
Absolutely.
right? And you can make someone believe and do something which he or she did not earlier believe is only when the person has trust in you. That trust gives you the ability to inspire your peers and subordinates, to motivate them, to influence them. And like spirituality, if we look at spirituality in terms of love, as your love becomes more inclusive, you tend to become more forgiving, more accepting, more open,
Absolutely.
which means in a way you start going beyond your ego.
Correct.
And this is exactly what you were referring to,
Yes.
right? As
Absolutely.
you start understanding that all of us, we seem different, but in reality are the same.
Right.
All of us are not objects of gratification for each other, but we are subjects like each other to help each other. The love, which brings the bonding and mutuality, opens up a number of things
Right.
and, ups your scale or a quotient, whatever you may call, as the influencer. You become the go to man or the go to woman or the go to leader. And believe me, I've seen subordinates who would give their left arm, left leg, right leg, everything for a good, compassionate, value based leader.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct about this, because I think even when we worked in our public life, and be it the bureaucracy or in a corporate world, you're always seeking out good leaders and trying to find opportunities to work with such leaders. And there are leaders who can make careers. So that's a very important point you brought out, Sandeep. That uh, people seek out good leadership, and one of the criterias of a good job is who is going to be my boss or who's going to be the leader. Because a good leader, even if you do not have a great job profile, you're willing to take it on just to learn from that leader. So I think that's a great thing you've said. Having said that, I also want to add that when you are spiritual, you also tend to be living in the moment. So you take advantage, or you take full, you live in the present. You are taking full advantage of that particular moment. So that anxiety about future, or the lamenting about the past, things which drive us even in our individual personal lives, are things which drive a lot of organizations as well. You're all the time anxious, you're stressed, you're high pressure presentation tomorrow, so you are getting flustered, and you're sending your frustration and flustered vibes and energy down the line to everyone in the organization. And so you're making all these desperate calls, desperate changes, last minute adjustments. This kind of leader, you may finally land up winning the contract, or making the impact you wanted, but that whole process by which you kind of troubled everybody has also kind of had its impact. So, sometimes there could be successful uh, leaders when you look at the end result. But if the process of reaching that, arriving at that end result has been a extremely stressful one, people are not going to like it. If you start disturbing people at odd hours, if you try to, uh, try to not delegate sufficiently, not trust your subordinates sufficiently, these are all failures of someone who hasn't found a certain amount of comfort in oneself. If you're comfortable with yourself where you are, and you have that self confidence and self trust, then you will realize that regardless, even if a subordinate were to make a mistake, you would be able to take it over. And nothing is so impossible or so bad that one should stress about a future likelihood right away and create problems or trouble in the present. So that mind, that kind of a living in the present, that kind of a mind is very essential for a top leader, because then that leader makes it much easier for everyone else also to, in a relaxed calm manner, take uh, informed intellectual good decisions. And therefore it's important, I feel, to be
Right.
civil.
You have brought out a very important point, you see. Like these days, we have the T20, right?
Yes.
It's all tamasha, it's all glamour, it's all fun, it's all excitement,
Right.
right? Yeah, there are skills, right, required, but still, the test cricket is test cricket. The real skills are appreciated over there,
Absolutely.
right? And and the mindfulness part, right? That is a very important thing. Like usually I tell people, I said, look, to start your journey on mindfulness, and mindfulness automatically takes you to the keeps on taking you to the higher and higher and higher level.
Right.
So you start with the AOPA formula. What does AOPA stand for? A stands for attention management, because in the human ecosystem the most important thing is our attention,
Mm-hmm.
and the most fickle thing is also our attention. So unless you really learn to manage your attention, you really can't achieve much. So, first is learn to manage your attention. Number two is O stands for observation. Now, once you have learned to manage your attention, start observing not only what's outside, but also what's happening inside you. Because for every thought and every external stimuli, first creates a reaction inside us, and then there's a reaction outside us. So, if we learn to recognize the reaction inside us, we immediately come to know the way we are going to react in the external world. And between the two reactions, there's a small space. And in that space lies the freedom to move from reacting to responding. The third is pause. Now, pause again is that gap which I just talked about, right? Which gives you the freedom. And the last is acceptance. How do we accept things? Well, the play was good, but had she acted better? Come on, man, the play was good or bad? Or, or I could not attend, I could not, attend the function, or I could not come to your party because this thing. Come on, the fact is you just could not attend the function. So
Yes.
state that thing and then at the right time talk of the reason. So what we do is when we accept reality, by adding riders and explanations to it, we shift our attention and focus, right? So the
Right.
reality goes in the background and our personal reasoning becomes the main point.
Right.
So if a person starts practicing this AOPA formula, which has done a lot of good to me, and I have derived it, from personal experience of many, many years, what happens is the person starts becoming flexible, adaptable, coherent, energized, and stable. And
Brilliant.
and when these five qualities come in, right, your relationships improve, your mindset changes, you're more open, more accepting, more loving, and you display emotional maturity, you display rational maturity, you display deep self awareness. That
Mm.
is spiritual maturity.
Right.
And when I believe your spiritual maturity, your emotional maturity, and your rational maturity integrate properly, the world is yours.
Wow. Very true. Very well put.
So, okay, we are 31 minutes in. We usually talk for 30 minutes to 35
Right.
minutes.
No, I
So,
loved your AOPA formula, and I think that's something I should also remember and use. Thank you.
uh, so what would your tips be to the people, to our listeners, to our viewers? How can they, you know, start unfolding their latent
Right.
spirituality?
I think I'm so happy you asked this because even though we say that it's a very individualistic and very experiential kind of a situation that develops this spiritual side of you, you have to also consciously attempt to get connected with your spiritual being. And that will should come from within. Uh, you've got to first of all recognize, I think there are a lot of tips by which a lot of people have given a lot of tips. I mean, meditation is a tip. Now, meditation doesn't necessarily mean meditating on upon something. It's just silent, quiet contemplation, an awareness of your surroundings and your own interaction and interdependence with others, and other beings and other creatures in this world. This awareness, even just simple awareness of your breath coming in and going out, I think all these things get you to understand that there are many things which are beyond you, which are helping you and keeping you, in this particular path that you're in, or in the position that you're in. And once you kind of appreciate that and get deeper into it, and realize that you are beginning to get more mindful, less angry, more empathetic, more calm, I think people get more and more, get deeper and deeper into the quest for spirituality. I think many of us have all evolved. I think whoever has had spiritual experiences, we can only say this, that as I entered the spiritual realm and developed my inner spiritual being, I just got deeper and deeper into it, because I realized that I was just becoming better and better as a human being. And there were so many things that earlier mattered a lot which don't matter at all today. And there were so many things which did not matter at all in the past which matter very very much today. And I think the end result is that you connect better with people, strangers, unknown people. The minute they see you, they recognize that vibe in you. And I think that connection happens if you have developed your spiritual self. We can recognize a spiritually aware human being even as that person walks into a room. So that is the kind of calm, the eyes say it, that peaceful halo. I mean, it's not a real halo, but you radiate that kind of positivity, that kind of energy within you when you walk into a room. And that is a spiritual person.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I'm reminded of a quote of Dr. Radhakrishnan.
Hmm.
He said, spirituality in man is not an actuality, it is only a potentiality.
Yes.
So, guys, all of us have got the potential to rise. All of us have got the potential to be mindful. All of us have got the potential to love. All you need to do is up your game.
Right.
You're already mindful. You got to enhance it. You're already loving people around you. You got to expand it. And you just got to rise beyond the I and think in terms of we.
Yes.
And I think that'll make you totally spiritual, and spirituality. When the inner world and the outer world function in sync, believe me, you are the king and the queen.
Very true. From me to we.
From me to we.
Yes.
So, well, guys, thank you very much for being with us today. And it's 35 minutes. Well, you're on my page. If you want to connect with me, you can always send me a message. I'll respond. Sharda, why don't you tell people how can they get in touch with you?
Thank you. I have my LinkedIn account as well. So Sharda Subramaniam, you could send me a message, get in touch, or even on this particular page, I will be in touch with Sandeep, and I'm sure Sandeep, you will let me know if someone needs any,
Of
if
course, of
there are
course.
any queries. It's been an extremely wonderful and pleasurable half an hour with you, Sandeep. And I think, as I was telling you, we all grow spiritually. I think even in these 30 minutes, we've grown a bit spiritually. So we learn from each other and we continue to learn. And that is the essence of spirituality. It just keeps on touching you and impacting you. And so if that is the impact on you, you can imagine the impact you will have on others. So that is the whole idea of today's talk, I think. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.